YouTube takes a lot longer to get me going, but we are ready. And so I will likely look this way. So I apologize to all of my IG and YouTube viewers because I'll probably look back and forth. But that's cool. I just got a notice that Girlfriend Therapy is live, so that's good to know. But I'll probably be looking back and forth and there. So let's get started because I'm already a few minutes behind YouTube. And like I said, as you guys know, I will be answering questions. I have all my questions here for tonight's episode of Ask Dr. K. So I'll be answering questions and I will, uh, if time permits, I'll then answer questions live. If there's anybody in the chat that has a question, either on IG or YouTube, if there's anyone that has a question, I will then be answering questions live. So we can go from there. Let's get you going. And let's get to our questions. If I can find them. Perfect. I think they're here. And let's see. Nope, this isn't. This is it, but this is not it. So hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. I'm going to chat a little bit while I pull up my questions. Hopefully you guys are having an awesome, awesome day, awesome week. All is well. You think I would have did this? Let me see. And the only reason is because on my tablet, I just don't know where stuff is. So it always looks a lot different than it does on my desktop or any other. Is it any documents? Nope, I keep looking at the same thing. What is this? All right, I think I'm gonna just have to go with what I have and try to work it out from here because it's not giving me what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's not giving me what I'm looking for. I don't think so anyway. Anywho, let's go. Alrighty. So first question, as you guys know, we answer these anonymously. So I won't attribute this to anybody. In some cases, I don't know who actually sends the questions in. Let me turn you guys this way a little bit so I'm a little more centered with you guys. In most cases, I don't know who sent the question, so I'm just kind of answering them anonymously anyway. So question number one. Let's see. Dear Dr. K, my wife and I have successfully raised our four children. Almost. All of our children have successfully left the nest except for our 24-year-old son. We've tried every tactic in the book to get him out of the house, but he just won't leave. He hasn't done anything since graduating from high school 6 years ago. He has had little jobs here and there, but he seems to get fired from every job. I have had it and I really want to bounce him out on his head, but my wife isn't having it. How can we motivate our son to get a job and get out of the house? Um, that's a funny question. It's not really funny, but there is always that way where I think, especially as a mother of a son, just a mother in general, I think mothers are always like, it's my baby, give them time, we're here to support. And so we tend to kind of take that approach when it comes to raising our children. And even when they become adults, sometimes it's difficult for mothers to um, like kick the bird out of the nest and let them fly. So, son 24 graduated, you said high school 6 years ago. So I'm assuming he didn't go to college, which is fine. Everybody's college is not for everybody. Um, and you said he's had little jobs here and there, but he seems to get fired from every job. So first thing I would wonder, and I would imagine that you guys have probably talked to him until you've turned blue in the face. But I definitely would wonder like what's going on in his mind, because it sounds like there may be something else happening, something else emotionally, perhaps, even mentally, maybe that's going on there. And when I say mental, I'm talking literally about like heaviness of the mind. Maybe there's a unexplainable sense of fear or concern or worry about like what his future might be. I think also you think about the whole pandemic, which at this point was probably about what was we in 23, 22, 21, which was about, I guess, 3 years ago. So at that point, he would have been what, 21, which is a, significant time in someone's life. I think the pandemic has left a lot of people feeling a little anxious. I can only imagine. So at the top of the pandemic, which was like, was January 2020, at the top of the pandemic, he probably would have been about 19, 20. Well, he's 24. He probably would have been about 20 to 21 years old, which is still relatively young, which is still a great stage for young people to try to figure out what they want to be, what they want to do. I would imagine that he probably already, when he decided that he didn't want to go to college, he decided that early on. And so with that decision, um, there was a reason why. And hopefully you guys may have talked with him at that time when he decided that he didn't want to go to college initially, and maybe even try to um, get to the bottom of what it is that he's thinking. And so if that's the case, if you all did talk with him back when he was coming out of high school trying to figure out what he was going to do after high school, hopefully when you had that conversation, maybe it's worth rethinking about that conversation and revisiting some of the reasons why he decided he didn't want to go to college in the first place, because there could be some underlying reason that's still lingering as to why he just don't want to, get out of the nest, don't want to, spread his wings and fly and, create his own space in the world. Um, so I would say for sure kind of getting down to the bottom of it. And even if he's not comfortable with having a conversation with you or your wife, maybe, maybe him having a conversation with a trusted family member or trusted friend, somebody that you guys trust who can, kind of talk to him and kind of get a sense of what he's thinking, what he's feeling, why he may, not want to, um, maybe why he is struggling with making a decision of whether or not to go to college or or whatever. And so I think that that's probably one solution or one option that you guys can do is just really checking in with him and see, hey, what's going on, or getting someone else to check in, someone that you and your wife trust, to be able to have a real conversation with him. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if there wasn't some real anxiety behind maybe the idea of not just going to work, but maybe just anxiety behind the idea of growing up and becoming an adult, um, especially off of the off of the cusp of the pandemic and all that stuff. I think it might be a challenging time, um, or created some challenges for him. So I would think that that's one of the first things. Um, the second thing is I get it, he's 24, but when you think about the bigger scheme of life and a bigger scheme of things, 24 is still relatively young. And I think grace is always a good thing to show, especially as a parent. I'm sure you guys have done all of this. This is just me on the outside looking in, just trying to give my bit of advice. But I think grace is definitely an important factor here. Um, not making them too comfortable though on the other side of that, like, not making it too comfortable for them to just stay forever, but give them a little grace and try to help them figure it out. Encourage them, that, or remind them that you guys are here to support. I remember when my son, when he was graduating high school, and he was, in the 12th grade, and he was all prepared to go off to college, and he kind of got in trouble like the first year or the first week of school. He was like in 12th grade, got in trouble. The teacher called me for some reason, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Like he is darn near an adult." But when I talked with him, I remember letting him know. I said, "Look, you're about to be 18. Like you are about to be a whole man that's going to be responsible for yourself." I said, me and your dad, we are quickly moving from being a part of from being your providers to being a part of your support system. And that was a very important conversation for us to have because it was really letting him know that, hey, we're passing the baton of your future over to you. Like we'll be here to continue to support you in any way that we can, but ultimately it is your responsibility to really figure out what your life is going to be. It's your responsibility to figure out how you're going to navigate, how you're going to accomplish the things that you accomplish and the things that you see for yourself. So I think there's a level that is a level of handing their life over to them, and letting them know that you're just there to support. I think that is an important step. So I don't know if you guys have kind of had that conversation, because I would imagine that it could be frustrating first and foremost to have a child and everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do, but then you get the one that's just kind of moving a little slower than the rest of them. So I can imagine that it could be frustrating. I can imagine that you guys have probably had many conversations with him about what your expectations are, about his need to get it together and kind of do things for himself. I imagine that you guys have had a lot of conversations in that space, and I imagine that you're frustrated. So I would encourage you to let someone else have that conversation with him, perhaps. That will make it easier for him to maybe be able to talk freely without feeling judged or without feeling the pressure. But then really helping to get to the bottom of it, because I think ultimately that's what you all would want, is to get to the bottom of it. And in this season where stress is no stranger to any of us, and anxiety is really no stranger to any of us. I think grace is an important thing to do, and then really just kind of that support it was really important as well. Now, like I said, 24 is one of those tricky ages, so I think there's still room to kind of walk with him a little bit further into this thing called adulthood. Um, and I don't know like all the background, but there could be, I mean, just a lot of reasons why he's hesitant to get out on his own and build his own life, and there could be a lot of reasons. And I think also one of the things, and you guys will hear me talk about this often and all the time, and I think is important in every walk of life. You guys will hear me say, it's important to have a mentor. Mentors are incredibly important, and even in this regard, when young people are trying to figure out what it is that they want to do, it's important to have a mentor. I think also, I don't know if he's creative, because sometimes, the creative types, the idea of having a traditional 9 to 5, or the idea of going to a traditional school kind of environment is daunting. So if he's a creative type, maybe finding ways to help tap into his creativity, and maybe even supporting that may open doors, to help build his confidence. It could open doors for him to get connected to like-minded people. I'm telling you guys, there's nothing like it. I was just having that conversation today. Just the energy and the joy that I feel being around like-minded people, especially as a creative. Like there's nothing like it. And it makes you feel more invigorated, feel more alive, and feel more passionate about life and all those things. So I think really getting down to the bottom of what it is that he wants to do, what it is that he sees himself doing. Like if he was king for a day and he can paint the world however he wants, what would he be doing? So that might be a fun conversation or a fun exercise to have with him. And even if he can't articulate it, maybe give him an opportunity to write it down, and just, and then as a part of his support system, kind of helping support him in that. So, for example, I know my son, he is an amazing artist. And although my son went off to college and got a degree in IT, he still has his creative side, which he really gets to explore. And he, like I said, an amazing artist. So he's actually, doing art as well as doing, his traditional, working in his degree, his field of study. And so when my son was in college. I think he probably was either a freshman or a sophomore in college. And he, like I said, he's going to school. He was going to college for architecture originally, and then he switched over to IT. And when he was going to school, I knew that he's an amazing artist. So I really wanted to support and cultivate that in him as well. And so I ended up, my husband and I bought him a Mac computer. And I remember from a friend of mine was like, "Why would you buy a Mac?" Because they're expensive. I was like, "Because that's his gift. He has a gift for creating and all that stuff. And I just want to continue to cultivate and encourage him in his gift." And so that was really the reason. And to this day, um, like I said, he has this traditional career and he does very well in his career, but he is also a phenomenal artist and he does very well in his art world as well. So it's kind of like that balance where we're not your providers, but we're definitely a part of your support system. And if we see your gift and there's a way for us to help support you in that gift, then that's what we're going to do. So I share that to say that in your son's case, I don't know, like I said, if he's a creative type, I think us creatives, you got to deal with us a little bit different. Ultimatums will not ever work with us. So I think just trying to find a way to help cultivate his gift, get him a mentor, somebody who can maybe, augment you guys as far as, parenting and encouragement goes and help him in that way. And I think ultimately your question is how do you motivate him to get a job and get out of the house? I think the key is to motivate him finding the thing that he is passionate about or interested in. Even if it's, a slight interest that he may be afraid to share. It could be something that you guys, um, may not, I don't want to say approve of, but I know how some parents you want your kids to go and, become a doctor or a lawyer or some other, engineer or some other thing like that. And he may say, "Hey, I just want to be a gamer," or, I don't know. So just finding out what it is that he wants to do, figuring out how you guys can support him in that, and then also encouraging him. To find mentors and to explore the world of creativity. And I'm literally just guessing here because I'm just assuming that he's a creative. But then I think that mental health component is very, very real as well, especially being as young as he is, having 3 of those years, having to deal with all of the effects of COVID and the residue that COVID has left behind, on our mental and our emotional stability. So hopefully that's helpful. I think if you solve one part of the problem, then you can kind of get and the first part of the problem I think is checking his mental well-being, and you can do that with the help of a friend or another trusted adult that you trust to be able to kind of sit down and mentor him. But then I think the next part of that is figuring out what it is that he sees himself doing and how you guys can help cultivate that, how you guys can help support him in that. And and ultimately once he finds his wings, he's going to want his own nest. So he will, eventually get out of the house and you guys can salvage the relationship. So hopefully that was helpful. That's a really interesting question. Like I said, 24 is always is one of those in between kind of, really, really where you're still trying to figure yourself out. And then I think COVID just kind of like you can 24 minus those 3 years, 3.5 years of COVID. And I think probably mentally, emotionally, he's probably a scarred 21-year-old at this point. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay, next question. Dear Dr. K, I'm 43 and single. I love my freedom, but I would love to be in a caring and loving relationship. I never imagined that I would be 40 plus and single, and to be honest, I'm afraid that I may never meet the love of my life. I don't want to be single forever, but it is so hard to find a good man. There's a guy at work who has asked me out, but I'm not interested in him romantically. Is it wrong for me not to give him a chance? That's a good question. And I think if I'm taking a step back, um, you're looking for the love of your life, right? I think it's interesting because I think sometimes when we say, I want the love of my life, or I'm looking for my person, I think a lot of times we have in our mind what that person, not only how they show up, but what they look like. And so sometimes you can miss how they show up because you're ultimately looking like you feel like I want to be immediately attracted to the person, or I want them to be this tall or this complexion or this build, or you have all these physical requirements first. And then if you can get past the physical requirements, then you can kind of get into the personality and all those other parts of the trait. And so I would imagine that your coworker who has asked you out, you're probably not physically attracted to him. So when you say I'm not interested in him in that way, I'm assuming that that's more of a physical, like you're not physically attracted to him. And he's probably a nice guy, but he's just not your type, and that's fine. So the question is, are you wrong for not giving him a chance? I don't think you're wrong, but you could be missing out on a good relationship. Like you could be missing out on something, or you could not be missing out on something. But I don't think there's any harm in maybe going out to lunch. That's something that's happens during the day. It's not any big commitments. I wouldn't go out to dinner with him or even out to drinks with him, but it might not hurt to go out to lunch. Or maybe one Saturday going out to brunch or something like that. I don't think that that would hurt if you're interested. Like if he's somebody that you can tolerate at work, he may be somebody that you can tolerate over a meal, and maybe learn a little bit more about the person or about him outside of work. And who knows, you may kind of find that attraction from the inside out. So that's quite a possibility. Another thing I'll say is, you guys know I've been married since I was 20, so my husband and I didn't do a whole lot of dating. So but my husband and I we were very young when we got married, and I always say without question, and I don't know if I mean, when I was young, I don't know. I don't know how I would approach dating now at like 50. I could not imagine. But I know when I was dating my husband, I was physically attracted to him first. I knew nothing about his personality. I was incredibly attracted to him, his physique, how he looked on the outside. And I remember there was a guy that asked me out, and he was nice, but I wasn't attracted to him. And so again, we're talking about dating at 18, 19 versus dating at 40 plus. How old you say you're 43? And so I don't know that I would have grown out of the need to be physically attracted to someone, um, and that I would have matured to a space where I could like someone because of their personality. And you guys are probably like, "Boo," but I'm being honest. And I like I said, young when I got married, so I don't know what 43-year-old Kwanzaa, who if I had never been married and never been in a relationship, like a serious relationship, I don't know what that would look like. I would imagine over the years, maybe I would have got a little less shallow in my dating. Um, but I will say this, I've always given people a chance. And what I mean by that is, even the guy that wanted to date, I didn't date him because I wasn't attracted to him, but we went out to dinner. And I was clear in the beginning, like, well, I'm not attracted to you, but we can go out to dinner. So I've always kind of gave people a chance, not necessarily, looking to change my mind with regards to being attracted to the person. So I wouldn't say that it's unfair, but you might be missing out on an opportunity to meet someone, have a conversation with someone that could surprise you. Like he could end up being a really nice guy and somebody that you would, could ultimately see yourself in a relationship with, a serious relationship with. And I think the idea of I guess the idea of finding, um what did you say, the love of your life. I don't know. I think the idea of that, I think in order for them to be the love of your life, like it has to start somewhere. And for some people personalities are huge. They're more into the personality of a person. And so if you can put down for a second the fact that you're not physically attracted to him, but kind of go into, like I said, a daytime date, um, and just really try to get to know them as a person. And it doesn't mean that, you'll say, "Oh yeah, that's the guy and that's my person." It doesn't mean any of that. But at least you'll give yourself a chance. Um, and I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I wouldn't say that you are wrong, but I would say that I think it might be worth it just to even go out, um, go out on a date with him. I'll also say this. I talk to a lot of women, and it's interesting because there seems to be this, I guess, this idea that women are, you know, I, like women don't need a man, you know. And I don't think anybody needs anybody. I think we need each other in theory, but as far as, oh, I need a man or I need a woman, I don't think anybody needs anything. But I think that there is beauty in relationship, and there's beauty in connection, and there's beauty in having someone who you can share your good days with and share your bad days with, someone who can encourage you when you're down. I think there's some beauty in that. And I meet a lot of women who, you know, well into their 50s, well into their 60s, who may have never married or may have married and had since been divorced. And there's a very real concern. And I think I see this more with men, with women than I do with men. And it's not to say that men don't experience this as well, but there's a very real concern about, um, you know, getting older and being alone. I think that's a real concern. I remember I was in a meeting, and it was like one of, like a ministry meeting, and there was a woman that was on the call. It was on, an online meeting. There was a woman that was on a call, and she was very emotional about even the thought and idea of being alone. I think she was turning 60 and she wasn't married, and she kind of had like this very real feeling of like, I would have never imagined that I would be this age and be by myself. Hopefully, you guys cannot hear my dog snoring back there. So ghetto. Um, but she had this very real, concern about being 60 and being by herself. And I think that's a real, like I said, a very real concern. And she's not alone. I've had other women, kind of share that same kind of sentiment. I think interestingly for men, and we all know this, like I'm not telling you guys at this point anything that you don't know, but I think interestingly enough for men, they always seem to be able to find a woman. Um, and I don't know why, but men are always able to find a woman. Like if a man doesn't want to be alone, then he will have less of a hard time finding a woman. It maybe has something to do with the ratio of men to women. Maybe maybe it just comes down to that. But I think that's very much a part of, for women, the idea of really getting older and not having a relationship or even a companionship. I think is a very real concern. And so in your case, I would say, like, you don't have anything to lose if just go out on a date. If nothing else, he could be a companion. You guys can be companions for each other. To just go out, like I said, on a daytime, lunch, breakfast, something, just where there's no expectation. Um, you can be very honest, like, no, we're just, just this is just dinner. What was that on Boomerang? With Halle Berry and David Allen Greer's characters that went out, and his dad thought she was his girlfriend. He was like, "No, we're just friends." So sometimes you can just be friends, and I think that can. But you don't want that to get in the way of you trying to find your person or the person that you want to ultimately, I guess, if you want to get married, you just said be in a loving, caring and loving relationship. So that doesn't necessarily mean you want to get married. But if you want to get married, you don't want to, I don't want to say waste your time, but you don't want to miss the opportunity to meet somebody. So I guess ultimately I would say take every opportunity that you can to meet people and to get to know people and to, spend time or go out to dinner. Just, I I hate to say like have fun because that becomes, I think, so exhausting after a while. I can only imagine. But I would say, meet people, find people that you enjoy. Because here's the thing, I'll share this and then I'll move on to the next question. But the funny thing is, I often like I have women friends who are single, I have male friends who are single, and whenever I talk to them, both men and women, like the women are like, "Oh, it's a good man is hard to find," and then my male friends like, "Oh, a good woman is hard to find." So you have both of them on both sides saying that it's hard to find someone. And if I'm being honest, when I talk with either of them, like whether it's my male friends or my female friends, what I realize is that they are incredibly picky. And I think the older you get, the more you are setting your ways and the pickier you are. And like I had one friend who was annoyed by the way the girl he went on a date with laughed. He's like, I didn't even want to make a joke because her laugh annoyed me so much. And it's just like, bruh, like it's her laugh. Like, um, and so like it really you I think sometimes you kind of have to check yourself and say, am I being unreasonable? Um, Not necessarily in your expectations, because you don't want to have to lower your standards, and I don't think that you have to. But if you're not giving a person a chance because their laugh is annoying, if you're not giving a person a chance because maybe they're not as tall as you want them to be, or maybe they're not as I don't know. You kind of have to maybe rank rank your expectations. Like if I want a person that's tall, dark, handsome, makes six figures, is whatever, whatever. And then you may say, okay, well, they don't have to be as tall. Or they can be tall, but I'll take them light skin, like whatever, maybe you have to rank it and see what's most important. And if looks is most important, then, you know, um, I don't know. Then I guess, if you're not physically attracted to the person, then maybe it wouldn't be worth going out with them if you couldn't get over the fact that they don't look the way that you want them to look. Um yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I guess to answer your question, no, it's not wrong for you to not go out with them, but you could be missing out you could be missing out on an opportunity to meet someone or get to know him in a better way. I know so many people too who have, like, especially like in their 50s and 60s or whatever, have kind of how they call it, went around the block, and now they're dating somebody who is that they may have went to high school with, and they met them later in life, and came across them again later in life, and they are a couple now. um I know people are getting married, well into their 60s, for the first time, so there's always an opportunity. I think you just have to decide for yourself if waiting, if you're willing to wait for that ideal, your person, that ideal who comes in the ideal package. You have to decide if you're willing to wait for that. Um, or you have to decide if, like the caring, loving, if that's more important. Um, and you did say, yeah, I want to, we say, love to be in a caring and loving relationship. So, caring and loving relationship, if that's your criteria, and you didn't say anything in here about handsome and all that stuff, I think I kind of read into that. But if you're looking for someone, a caring, loving relationship, then I would say open a door for opportunities that may not look like you would expect them to look. Um, yeah, I think that I kind of went around and said a whole bunch just to say that I would say, be open to opportunities. I don't know. Like I said, everybody I talk to, I hear it on both sides. Men saying that there are no good women out there, women saying there are no good men out there. I actually played with the idea a couple of years ago. Played with the idea of doing a like a not a speed dating, but kind of hosting like a mixer, and I was going to invite, a lot of single male friends, a lot of single female friends. And oddly enough, I actually posed the question, did kind of a bit of a, impromptu survey to say if I did something like this, who would all go? And I think I had maybe two men on my of my Facebook friends that would say, "Oh, I'll be interested in that." And I had probably about 50 women that would say they would be interested. So I don't know what those numbers are telling you, 2 men to 50 women, that's the ratio of 2 to 25. So, yeah, or 1 to every 25 women to every 1 man. So, um, I don't know. I don't know if that's symbolic of what it really looks like out here in the dating world, but that's what they were, that's what it looked like when I was going to do the mixer. So, I don't know. I would say do yourself a favor first. Go out to lunch with your coworker. I know a lot of people say they don't date where they work, and maybe that that maybe that might be one of the reasons why you would say no. But even tell him, say, hey, I'm not really interested because we work together or whatever. But do you have any friends that you can introduce me to? And maybe that might help. Um, a funny story, and I'm going to leave off of this topic. But a funny story. I used to try to hook people up all the time, like because I'm always just meeting some amazing people, and I tell you, I am 0 for 0. Like everybody that I've ever tried to connect just never seemed to connect. And these are people that I'm thinking like, he's a thorough dude, she's a beautiful woman. Surely they can come together and make magic. And every single time it was like like it just never got off the ground. So I'm not, big on matchmaking, but I figure if I can create a space, one thing I can do is create some ambiance. And if I can create a nice space with some nice music, and bring beautiful people into the room, surely somebody will be drawn to somebody. So, but as far as me like one on one trying to connect people, never been good at it. So, um, so there's that. But yeah, I would say if you want to give the guy a chance, give him a chance. If not, maybe he has a friend or somebody that you can connect with that, you might be interested in. And I'm sorry, I'm just like you going around the circle because as I think about this question, if you are 43, so you're younger than I am, and I know a lot of people who are meeting like non-traditional, meeting people non-traditionally, like online or dating apps and things like that. I know at least 5 people who met someone online, like through one of the dating apps, and got married. Like at least 5 people, like got married, had children, had a whole life together. At least 5 people. So say what you will about the dating apps. If you're not already on those, and it has to probably be something that's really reputable. I don't know the apps out there, but I'm sure there's some that could be trash. So I would recommend getting on some that's very reputable. Um, and and at that point, it may be worth just like going on this series of dates and just meeting people and trying to see, what sticks. So there are options out there. I think for sure there are options out there. You just have to figure out what you are willing to do, what you're comfortable with doing, and then make a decision because, yeah, make a decision. Um, and if ultimately just finding a loving and caring person, I'm sure you can find a loving and caring person that you can spend your time with. So good luck with that. That's an interesting one. Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking about, as I open this water, sitting here thinking about the many people I know who legit met somebody online, dating apps. Girl I work with, she met a guy online. They actually ended up working in the same, worked for the same agency. They met online, realized they worked at the same place, dated, got married. And I think she was well into her 60s. Sorry. Yeah, so it's possible. All right, next and final question. Dear Dr. K, there's a woman at church who is always smiling at my husband. Oh my, hold up. There's a woman at church who is always, who is always smiling in my husband's face. I'm not an insecure woman, but I think she is sneaky. And as a woman, I have a sixth sense about this kind of thing. Last Sunday, while we were in church, my husband was at the back of the church waiting for me, and I caught her staring at him. I watched her as she went out of her way to go over to him to speak. My husband just waved and turned away awkwardly. I watched the whole exchange and I was so annoyed. I wanted to confront her about it, but I was so irritated. And I know that if I say something, I'm not going to be nice. What is a nice way to confront her? I'm still stuck on the fact that the woman at church. Oh, wow. Okay. So, a woman at church is in your husband's face. Listen, this is not funny, but my mind is like racing. So, listen, let's take the aspect of take the fact that she's out that this is happening in church. Um, I'm so stumped, guys. Hold up. I'm not really stumped. I'm just trying to figure out how to answer this. So let's take the fact that she's outside of church. I guess your emphasis that she's a woman in the church is that you think that she would be respectful of your marriage. So I'm assuming that's why you emphasize that she's a woman in church, or in fact that is like that's probably the only time you see her, and that's when she's smiling in your husband's face is when y'all in church. So I would say that sounds like your husband did the right thing by just like waving. Um, I would imagine, well, hopefully that you've had a conversation with your husband about it, maybe. And if it's something that she's continuing to do, I can imagine that you are kind of fed up with it. Um, and that's why you notice it so much because it's something that she continues to do or is always doing. Um, and you don't have, yeah. So here's the thing. I think because I was just talking about with the last question, I think the ratio of men to women is like there are far more women than there are men. And I think as you get older, and I don't know how old you are, or how old you and your husband are, what age group you guys are in. I think as women get older, as again from this the comment before that, although this person before that didn't allude to being interested in, she wants her own man. She don't want nobody else's man, which is perfect. But I think that sometimes when I'm trying to answer this, like my brain is literally going 50 miles an hour because I feel like there's so much I want to say about this one question. But I don't wanna go off track. I wanna kinda stick to the question and then maybe veer into some other stuff. But I think the fact that she's at church, you think that she should be respectful. And I think with that, if you find that she is that you're feeling disrespected because she is always smiling in your husband's face, knowing that he's your husband, I would definitely maybe, you know, I would definitely talk to her. But here's the thing, I think even if you no matter how nice you are to say, "Hey, I noticed that or I don't feel comfortable," or however you word it, I think without question, she's not gonna admit to it. So without question, her response is gonna be like, "Oh no, I don't want your husband, girl." That's probably literally gonna be her response. Why is this guy kicking me in my back? That's probably literally gonna be her response. So you're not gonna get the reaction or the response that you think you're gonna get. You're not gonna get her to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just find him attractive," or whatever. You're not gonna get that. She's probably 9 times out of 10 going to deny, deny, deny. "I have not been looking at your husband, girl. I don't know what you're talking about." And then she'll probably tell the people, "Girl, she gonna confront me about her husband. I know she's so insecure." Like it's gonna be a whole thing, and it's probably gonna make it even worse. My advice to you would be to have a conversation with your husband, let him know if you haven't done so already that, yeah, I'm not liking the way that she is looking at you, or how she's making me uncomfortable, the way that that she's in your face. And then that way your husband will know. And it sounds like you probably already did, if broke her neck to go talk to him and he just kind of waved at her and walked away. So I'm imagining that you probably already did have a conversation so your husband knows how you feel about this woman and what your concerns are, not because you're insecure, not because you think she's going to steal your husband or anything like that, but just because of the disrespect of it all. And I will tell you that you confronting her is probably not going to make it any better. You saying anything to her, she's not going to confess to, "Oh, yeah, I'm staring at your husband because I want his attention and I like him." She's not going to confess to that. So you're not going to get that response. So I think the best thing for you to do is for you and your husband to have a conversation, let him know that you are uncomfortable with how she, acts around him or whatever. And I'll tell you, girls, listen, I have had my husband is very attractive. At least attractive to me, and I know he's attractive to other women. Um, and I remember several scenarios. Um, he's probably gonna be so irritated if I share this story. But I remember a couple of scenarios where there were women who from the church, child. I remember one girl, she used to be in his face so hard. And he'd be like, "But this is a girl he worked with, and she would be in his face so hard." And he was like, but no, she's a church girl. I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. So yeah, it doesn't matter the fact that she's at church. You would think that it does, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Um, I remember another time. I'm sorry, I would clown the women at church for a minute. Not clown y'all like clown y'all, but I just want to share a couple of stories. I remember another time there was this woman at church, my husband and I were at the church, and this lady, we were sitting probably like in a row behind, this other, we were sitting in a row behind where there was this man, and he was sitting there, and he was a single man, and she was a single woman, but they were older. They had at least at that time, probably in their early 50s, I would imagine. But she was older, and she was trying to get in the row where he was sitting. So of course, when people were coming, everybody was standing up, and she got like as she was scooting past him. When I tell you, she put her whole behind all up on him. He was like, and me and my husband looked at each other. And it was just like, whoa, like she was making it known that, listen. But both of them were single, so I guess they can do whatever they want. But, we were in church. But I'll tell you that several weeks later, they were a whole couple. So whatever she did, to get his attention, she got his attention. But that's neither here nor there. That's just my point about, it doesn't matter that she's in church. I think the bigger point is the fact that she knows that you're his wife and that she knows that he's married. So, but I wouldn't confront her because it's not going to turn out the way that you want it to turn out. Um, I will say, I will say that I too have experienced, and this was a little bit different. There was one girl church that we used to go to, and she used to this kind of similar thing, would always be so excited to see my husband. And I do agree as a woman, you know what you know. Like it's not even about being jealous. The hard smile or the staring too long or the intense, trying to get their attention. Like all that. So I would not even have you second guess or question. You know what you know. So I wouldn't even suggest for a minute that what you're sensing is not true. But I remember there was a girl, at church, and she would do the same thing. She would, like I said, just excited, so excited to see my husband. Every time we walked through the door, she'd be like, you know, just giddy. And anytime, she was close enough to speak or anything. But I knew my husband, I know isn't going anywhere. Um, and I don't say that, I don't say that like arrogantly or anything. Um, So I would at times, I would walk away and just to let him know, "Girl, he's like, you're it's pointless." So, but this particular girl, I remember she had, messaged my husband. He's probably gonna be so irritated I share this story, but she messaged him. It was crazy because, um, let me see, I think she and I was messaging her about something, and she I think a few days later or something, or a week or 2 later, she ended up messaging my husband. And I forget what she said. It was something like, "What are you doing?" Or something like really, and so my husband and I, we happened to be sitting next to each other. I think I don't know, we were out or something, but we were together. And she messaged him, it was like on Facebook Messenger, and it was just like, "What are you doing?" or something like that. And he just like looked at it, and he just handed me his phone. And I looked at it and I was just like, "Hey, this is Quentin's, this is Kwanzaa, like, what's up?" And, I forget how I said it, and she was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought," I was like, "Hey, this is Kwanzaa, you just messaged Quentin, was like, you just messaged my husband, what's up?" And she was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was messaging you." Like, so what do you first of all, why are you messaging me? Second of all, it like, how do you mix up him and get me? It's not even like both our like, yeah, our names sound the same, but it's not the same. You talking about KW versus QU. So, those is odd. And, I didn't have to really confront her, but I did, it was just like, hey, you know, and my husband didn't have to do anything. He was just kind of like, here, like, you go ahead and handle that. But I had told him before, like, yeah, she's always in your face. So I'm not questioning the fact that this woman is always in your face. I'm just saying that have the conversation with your husband so that the two of you are on the same page. So that if she does try to do anything or say anything out of order, out of pocket, that he'll make it known that he's not interested. Um, Even bringing it to your attention if she crosses the line, but I definitely would not. I wouldn't confront her. That would be honestly my advice to you. I wouldn't confront her because you're not going to get the response that you would be hoping for. She's definitely not ever going to admit to being interested in your husband. So I would not confront her on that. But just being clear with your husband to say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with the way that she like is always whatever. Um, and and put him on notice too, so that because a lot of times men are like, no, they ain't looking at me, oh, she ain't thinking about me, it's like, no. And just like men on the other side, like they know when another man is interested in you, and they'll be like, yeah, like, I'm watching him, and you just saying, well, I'm watching her, and not that either one of y'all think the other is going anywhere, but again it comes down to the respect level. And the only one that owes each other respect, in all honesty, is you owe your husband respect and he owes you the respect. So if anybody ever try to cross that line, then it's up to, like, if someone try to cross the line with me, I'm going to check them and I'm going to let my husband know that they try to cross a line with me. Um, and vice versa. If someone tries to cross a line with him, I think my husband, I don't know that he would, it depends on what they do. Um, I think he would, you know, um, get out of the situation. Like, he's not gonna like me, I'll be like, "Well, don't you I'm married," like, I would have a whole attitude. I don't think my husband's gonna have a whole attitude. He'll be probably more polite than he needs to be, but he'll get out of the situation, and then he will immediately be like, "Babe, guess what just happened?" And then I will probably be the one, you know, um, I'll make it known that I know, if that makes sense. So, like, with, in a case with the girl from church, immediately, because we were right there, I kind of made it known. Another case with a girl that my husband worked for, when he worked with, rather, she actually worked for him. I just kind of let him know, like, look, we're in the military. They got this was before the whole Me Too movement, but this was still, during the whole sexual harassment and stuff. It's like, you're her boss. You need to stay away from her. You don't need to be. And the military is really big on not, males and females, especially superiors to their subordinates, like, not being alone in a space. They got very serious about that, after a while, anyway. So I never had to say anything to her, but I did let my husband know, like, you don't need to be alone with her. Um, yeah, and not to tell nobody business, but she ended up messing with somebody else's husband there. So much for she go to church, or so much for she's a church girl. But yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. That was a good one though. All of these were really good. All of these are really good. So this time always go by so fast, guys. I don't see any questions anywhere, which is fine because I always just seem to talk all those questions like to nauseum or ad nauseum. But those are really good questions. Yeah, really good questions. I feel like this week the questions were I don't know, they felt a little more, I guess all of them are pretty personal. But I like the questions this week, talking about, relationships and dating and all that stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's Ask Dr. K. I'm a little tired today, guys. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm trying to, have my energy up and all that stuff. But this is like my first week back to work. Well, not my first week. I actually went back to work about a week and a half. Well, it's about a week and a half ago. And I have been wore out. I'm like, I really need to get and start taking some vitamins because I'm tired. And I was even thinking today, I said, maybe I need to move this to like 7 o'clock. But I didn't even get in till almost 7 o'clock today. So I'm glad it was at 8. But nonetheless, I'm super tired today. So hopefully my energy was up enough to keep you guys interested. But I think the questions were interesting enough that hopefully they kept you interested. Nonetheless, thank you all so much on YouTube for joining me. I see someone said hello, hello. I don't know who that is. Um, and then I did see a couple people coming on IG. I still haven't figured out which one works best. We'll figure it out. Doesn't hurt me to have IG live up and YouTube live. Hopefully they don't do anything with each other. So anywho, thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, and just a reminder, you guys can send your questions to Kwanzaa at girlfriendtherapy.org. You can send your questions there. We will answer them every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, anonymously. And hopefully, my little tidbits of advice is helpful to you guys and will help you to kind of figure out what to do. So, until next time, I'm going to shut down here. Until next time, blessings to you guys and thanks for tuning in.